If you're doing something because it's getting likes, but you don't like it, it's 0% chance of success. You will burn out. I'm sort of a creative mess. Brilliant team members are getting on me a lot because, they're trying to do things and my head's in 20 different, they're like, I need this, what? And as I'm going through this, I'm like, I've jumped the shark. This is too much. I'm losing the creativity and, in my mind, the beauty.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately that's going to, be something that you can carry out in the long run, because trying to be somebody or not, at some point the jig's up, people find out.
Yeah.
So it's authenticity is absolutely critical, and it's the way to go in the long run. Eventually, otherwise you're just going to be spinning your wheels trying to, okay, instead of me doing what I feel is best, what do I need to think of today that's going to, appease this audience that I'm not even really connected with. I just know that's what they like. It would get all these likes, but I wasn't my thing. Like, I didn't enjoy it at the time, but then I saw all the likes on it. So I was like, well, my audience only wants to see this. Well, it kind of pigeonholed me where I felt trapped into being like, I have to create content, not for what I enjoy, but for what they enjoy.
And it's funny, you mentioned like being pigeonholed into what's getting liked. Like, some guy will hit a door with a hammer, it'll get 1 million views. That's just such a powerful point. Like, if you are, we'll use the same metaphor, using the hammer, if you're doing something because it's getting likes, but you don't like it, it's 0% chance of success. You will burn out.
Welcome, everyone, to the Beyond the Cover podcast. My intent with creating this podcast was to provide a platform where men can speak openly about their journeys with mental health without fear of judgment while doing so. While I, the host, or you, the listener, may not agree with everything or anything that a certain guest says for that matter, my focus is not to decipher what is right or wrong. Rather, it's to gain a better understanding of why somebody thinks and acts the way that they do. And with this understanding, we will begin to make better sense of our own lives and the world around us. So join me as we open the books into these men's journeys and dissect the pages within.
Eddie Pinero, welcome to Beyond the Cover.
Clayton, thanks for having me, man. So
Yeah.
pumped.
I'm excited for this conversation. Really, every conversation that I have with somebody coming in here, everyone's from a different background. And every so often when I bring somebody in here, they have a track history with people that I know. And as I found out about you, there was a lot of excitement around the person that you are. And so as I dove into the inner workings of what makes you you as far as what you do on a daily basis, I was very impressed. So on the cover, for those that don't know you, I was trying to find a good word for it. I came up with, creative entrepreneur. So not just any entrepreneur, but you're a creative in that you're creating online content for people to motivate them and inspire them to be great, to give them hope for a brighter path forward. You're on every single platform. You have over 2 million followers across all different platforms, whether that's YouTube, Instagram. You think of it, you're there. You do podcasting as well. So you're really just doing everything you can to get out a message of a can-do attitude, of belief that whatever it is someone's facing, that they can overcome it. And so my first question to you is, first off, how long have you been doing it? Because it seems like, I saw a thing on Instagram, you had like 2,500 posts, which tells me you've been at it for some time.
I've been at it for a while. Yeah. And first of all, that was such a nice intro. Like, thank you for that. And we're joking off camera, like Scottsdale's a big town, but a small town. I've heard wonderful things about you too. So it's awesome.
Well, thanks,
man. But yeah, it's been 10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
Okay. And of those 10 years, because creating content's a grueling process.
It is.
Even when you're inspired, even when it's your passion, a lot of times, especially when you start it, you're just doing it out of your own just love for passion and love for the project. But it's not often that it turns into something profitable or pays the bills right out the gate, or gets the views that we want it to get. For you, 10 years in, and at what point did it begin to turn for you, whether it was from a viewership standpoint or whether it was from a financial standpoint where you could make this your everyday thing?
Yeah, but crazy enough, you're like 7.
Okay.
So yeah. And it is a journey of, for me, you said creative entrepreneur. I think that's right on the money. There's sort of like a personal mantra, the idea that people follow through on who they believe themselves to be.
Mm-hmm.
And for me as a creator, I actually try and separate myself from words like content and entrepreneur, which sounds like, silly and trivial, but like when I go that route, I box myself in.
Okay.
And I find that growth and financial success and impact is a lagging indicator to creativity. And so I'm always trying to open myself up to do that, But yeah, I was, I'd been on YouTube for just about 7 years. So started in 2014. It was like 2021 when YouTube did the hockey stick thing. And all of a sudden, had money, had people, reaching out, and I felt like I was truly helped. Like I could feel the impact at scale, which was the most important thing. But just the validation that like, I want to say I'd been seeking the entire time, and it did. It felt like it was 0 to 60 to the point where you feel guilty. It happened so fast because you're not looking back on year 1 through 7.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that was
So I'm curious, what drove you for those first 6 years of it not being, very popular or not turning a profit? I mean, what were you holding on to in those first 6 years to push you through? Because that's a lot of time to pour into something and seemingly not see a return.
I love doing it, right? There's like that intersection of what adds value and what you love. And it took me a while to get there. I experimented a long time. I pushed a lot of stuff away. But when I got there, I knew it was it. And, I wasn't blind. Like I was, doing some keynotes and getting some feedback and hearing, hey, this really helped me see things differently. I appreciate you. And it's like, if you can help one person, you can help a million, you can help a billion, right? So it's almost like I had the proof. It was just hanging in and pivoting until things scaled. And, believe it or not, it was some very technical changes on YouTube with thumbnails and watch time and how I uploaded the content and titled the content that shot it out to the masses. So it was like the formula was right, and I knew the formula was right. It was just the vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It was making those minor tweaks to make it easily searchable, or just for it to catch when they type it in, it's like, boom, they're getting content. They're searching for that. Now you're pushing your content to the front because you have a keyword in a certain way, but you always believed in the messaging aspect where you're like, hey, it's not an issue of my messaging because I'm receiving feedback saying this is great messaging. It's strictly about how do I get this in front of more people? And that requires the technicality aspects of like, okay, I need to tweak, and for the algorithm to pick it up.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the stuff that I write is emotive. It's over music. It's, and so a lot of them, for the first couple of years was emulated a song, right? It's like 3.5 minutes with a slow build, a crescendo at the end. And then it's as simple as, no, YouTube's changing their algorithm. So watch time is most important. If someone watches the entirety of a 3-minute video, that's only 3 minutes.
Yeah.
If you make that 20 minutes and someone watches half of it, YouTube values that more. So as a creator, as a writer, as someone looking to help people, adjust your writing style, bro.
Yeah.
Make it a 20-minute speech. And so it was just that type of thing,
Yeah. Where does that desire stem from? I mean, from the very beginning, going back to the origin of you beginning this content creation path, you mentioned that for the validation, you'd said that word. Is that what you were seeking from the very beginning? I mean, what you decided to go on this long journey that, again, I mean, we're talking year 7 before you start to see it turn. And so what was it that, originally sparked this interest? You said you love doing it.
Yeah.
But what's behind the love? I mean, what's waking you up every day? What was from day 1 into, year 7 before things switch?
Impact.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the motivator to be able to, and I just, you have to believe yourself to be that before you get there. And I've always believed that I could bring that to people and I could help. And, that word validation, like sometimes it would get frustrating because you feel like you're doing everything right, or you'd create this message or something would happen. I'd tell this story and I'm like, this is game changing. This is going to change the world, and release it. And no, swing and a miss, crickets. And it's like, well, you depersonalize and you just keep going,
Yeah.
But that's what it was about. getting people to feel. We're not practical. We're very emotional human beings. So like you can't, I don't know if you've ever read, I've read a ton of personal development books, and there are some, here's a list of 20 things that will help you improve. It's like, okay. But when you tell a story and you go, oh my God, you take someone on that roller coaster and you go, I resonate with that.
Mhm.
I can change. Right. And it's that type of storytelling that I do. I believe everyone's one decision away from an entirely different life.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times when we're going through it, we don't know that first. So we need someone to tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, you can be more.
Do you recall a time where you had that moment where you were tapped on the shoulder?
Yeah, this is one of the this is one of the most important moments of the last decade. He's actually a good friend of mine now, but it was maybe I want to say maybe it's 2017. Was going through, like you said, entrepreneurship's peaks and valleys. There's a valley. And got this email that said, how can I help you? And I opened it up. And it was a man named Rod Lake, who is an entrepreneur, a Hollywood producer, just a sharp guy, an impressive dude. He said, hey, Eddie, I'm doing a keynote speech. I'd love for you to help me write the keynote. Is that something you'd be into? And I'm like, 10,000%, I just, again, want to be around people like that. So I'm like, yeah, whatever it takes. So he flew from Hollywood to Florida, and we're sitting at a hotel, the name Margaritaville in the lobby. And
Wait, where was this?
Hollywood Beach, Florida.
Oh, okay. All right. You said Margaritaville. I'm thinking like for a second, I was like, wait, we had one of those in Missouri.
Oh, really?
I thought you went to the Ozarks. So I'm like, this guy went to the Ozarks for a speech, and I've actually went there for a speech once. So, okay, sorry. I heard Margaritaville. I was like, oh, okay.
No, you're good.
Okay,
you're
sorry.
good.
Yeah, just my ADHD brain just kicked in there.
And I guess he went from Hollywood to Hollywood, which is confusing too.
Okay,
Yeah, Hollywood Beach, Florida.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're sitting there, and he's talking about what he wants, and he goes, so is that something you can do? And I said, absolutely. And he said, all right, amazing. What's it going to cost me? And I said the same thing. I'm like, Rod, I don't care about money. Like, I just want to help out. And the moment was, he looked me in the eyes and he's like, Ed, be a fucking salesman. Like, come on. And wrote me a check for more than I'd ever made at that point. And I just remember walking out, and that was a turning point. He's like, from now on, you're never worth less than this. And, the money was good because you need the money, obviously. But I just remember thinking, what? Like, I can dictate my value? Like, how I see myself correlates to how people see me. And that light bulb moment was huge because one, I realized the upside, and two, I'm like, I'm playing too small.
Yeah.
So much of it starts with just what you see when you look in the mirror. And that was one of those moments. And I told that story years ago, and I try and give that back because not everyone gets that, It's a very rare thing.
Yeah. Did you struggle with self-confidence growing up?
Sure.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. In much improved. I mean, I believe confidence is earned, when you make a track record of success, in whatever you're doing, you start to be more confident. But I don't think things like that are solved, right?
Okay.
I think it's like you can't mitigate storms. You learn how to cope with them or cope while you're going through them. And so, there's always a next step. There's always something bigger and scarier. You're always meeting with someone who's more successful or has whatever. I mean, you name it, right? And it's understanding how to deal with that and having faith in yourself and just believing in your mission and positioning yourself to be you, know? And so that's something that I've had to learn along the way.
And so how do you personally do that? What does that look like because I mean, again, in today's day and age, there's comparison culture is completely rampant. I mean, people every single day are measuring themselves up to somebody else, whether they mean to or whether they don't mean to. I mean, social media now, the algorithms, the second you see someone that has something more than what you have, quote unquote, you click on it and then the algorithm feeds you 10 other people that look just like that individual. So now you have 10 representations of people that have, quote unquote, more than you. And then you can start to spiral and say, well, I feel like I have so little. I mean, my self-worth now is already, and a lot of times I don't think we even consciously realize it. We just keep clicking and clicking and clicking until all of a sudden after 30 minutes, we we're anxious and we're stressed because we've wasted 30 minutes of our time when we should have been working or doing something else. But we also saw 30 minutes of content that changed the way that we viewed ourselves. So I don't know if you ever find yourself in those situations, but how are you actively reminding yourself of your self-worth? What steps do you take?
I think what I've come to realize is it's just not important. Like, in a lot of ways, I insulate myself from it. I mean, there's something great about seeing a buddy do something amazing, go, oh, that's inspiring. Like, I can do that, but I don't think it's important. I think doing something you love and having a small group of people you care about in your world is everything. Like, that's what it's about. It's much more exciting. And the outside stuff is noise.
Yeah.
And, again, same as the storm analogy. Like, I don't say it as something that I've conquered. I get pulled into it all the time. I do projects. I do things because they're the shiny object. And I go, oh, that's not me. That's not where I'm going, And so I think, having the peace of mind and the understanding, knowing this is what's important to me. And this is what matters to me. And so this is what I'm going to pursue. And by the way, these are the people I care about. These people light me up. I don't feel smaller when I'm with these people. I want them around me. And when you have that, the other stuff fades away.
Yeah.
And not to mention, as so much of that stuff is fake. I mean, it's from followers to money to all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not what it appears to begin with. Yeah. So it's just to even open that door is just a losing errand,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes you just have to, well, not sometimes. I mean, mindfulness is key. Anytime you're trying to combat a certain set of beliefs is to understand what I'm believing. Is there actually validity to this? And to your point on followers not mattering. I mean, I've seen people go from 1,000 followers to 1 million, and I've watched people change the way they treat me when that happens. And, I think I had to take time to step back and go, wait a second. Why did all of a sudden their value increase and my value decrease in their eyes because they have 990,000 more followers? What does that even mean? How does that make you a better person? But I think what also helped me was finding people that went from 1,000 to 1 million that didn't change. And then I had a positive example of here's somebody that gained the world, and got all these followers and yet hasn't changed the way they view themselves. So now that I see that they don't see themselves as more and they don't look down on people, well, then that just goes to show you it's a choice from that individual as far as like how they choose to react to gaining those things, which to your point, I agree with. Like I went from having 990 something followers before TV to having 300,000 at my peak
overnight.
Oh. And there's a part of you that all of a sudden goes, ooh, have I made it? What do I do with this now? Do I act differently? But then you realize, well, I'm no different than I was 4 days ago before I gained all these followers, or 6 months ago. Nothing's really changed. So what does that mean? And it's like, again, the value is really what you decide to place in yourself. And that's where I think there are people that attribute, the followers to worth. And it's just not the case.
Yeah.
And you'll get lost in that, because once you start doing that, you'll say, oh, I'm better than all these people that have less followers than me. But then to your point, you'll find people that have more followers than you. You'll always find
it's a losing pursuit.
You'll just continue. If you care about followers, as far as having more than people, then you'll start caring when you don't have as much as the people above you. So it's a never ending game.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I mean, you said it beautifully. It makes you more or less of who you are,
Yeah.
And when you're grounded and you're mission based, it's an asset. Just like, money is a valuable thing because it's a resource and it allows you to get more out into the world. Same with followers. And this is what's crazy. Like being in the digital realm, every single one of those views is a human being sitting there taking it in. It's you don't see that, right? When you're looking at your phone. But it's an exciting thing to be able to impact or help that many people. And that's all it is. I think people hang their hat on it as some sort of, vanity thing. And I disagree with that.
I'm just curious. This just popped up in my head. For you, let's say you get 1,000 views or a message from somebody talking about how they've been watching your videos over the last 6 months and it's completely changed their life. Which one holds more weight?
My brain goes two totally different ways.
Okay.
So when I get emails like that, to me, that's like peak. That's a human being, and you feel it, and you can connect with someone on a personal level, and it's just a feeling that's indescribable.
Yeah.
When you talk about 1,000 views, like that's where the sort of business mind comes in, and it goes, oh, well, why? What's the problem? Like that didn't resonate for some reason. I really want my stuff to resonate. So how do we fix that or adjust that?
Yeah.
To me, there's nothing more precious than someone reaching out on a DM or an email. It's just like, it takes something that's very digital and makes it tangible, makes it real. Yeah.
You know what's interesting is as I say 1,000 views, you said, well, what went wrong?
Right.
Like with the video, because for you, 1,000 views is low, basically, essentially is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I just had this conversation recently, actually in therapy. I have like an unhealthy relationship with money where I feel like I never have enough because I'm always looking at the people above me. And as I've surrounded myself with people in rooms where they have 5 to 10 times the wealth that I have, you start to feel pretty insufficient. And I'm in a men's group as well, a men's mental health group. And one day this individual was talking about how he started being more he was more adamant about manifesting money. And so he was talking about how he was going to bring an abundance his way. And he came in and he was so excited to share a story. And then so we said, yeah, what's going on? He said, I manifested abundance in my finances. I got a check in the mail for like $50, just came in the mail, and it was like for a refund for something. And he was so happy. And I remember in that moment, my first thought was, but it's only $50. And I remember thinking, like, I wouldn't even think twice about it. This man is so excited about $50 because it's more so for him like that. It was money he didn't expect.
Yeah.
And he felt so grateful from God, the universe, that like it brought in that he felt he manifested and brought it to him. I think it's just interesting when it comes to perspective, because to your point, or as you stated, like, 1,000, I got to think what's wrong with my video.
Yeah.
And I could find someone that's like, well, 1,000 views would be incredible. That'd be my all-time high. But I'm the same way. I used to have videos that would do 1 million, 2 million views. And now I get videos that do 10,000. And I'm like, what's wrong?
Isn't it crazy? I don't have an answer for it, because I think there's two things at play. One is, like, as you're saying, when you look at only the numbers, it's toxic. It's cancer. Completely. Yeah. Imagine 1,000 people around us right now, right?
I mean, yeah, pack out a stadium or something or a room. You're like 1,000. That's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yes.
But then there's like, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this either, like the competitor, the entrepreneur, like, hey, I'm not building this to shrink. I'm building this to grow and help more people and get out there.
Yeah.
And so, like, how do you juggle the two in a healthy way? And that probably varies from person to person, but I think understanding that the two take you two totally different ways is a starting point, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do you juggle that? You have a video that does underperforms in your eyes. What are you doing in those moments? I mean, are you analyzing the numbers first, and then are you starting to like, once you get a sense of the numbers, you start to basically apply rationale to it? Because I think anybody who deals with this, I mean, I still know nowadays views and likes are everything. I mean, even to the person that gets 5 likes on a post versus 50, like, they're doing that. I mean, nowadays everybody is looking at numbers.
Yeah.
So how do you work through a situation like that? You have a post that underperforms in your standards. What are you doing to combat that?
I actually have a coach right now who happens to be a good friend of mine that's helping me through this, and it's totally depersonalized, like using the numbers as data. So, like, emotionally detaching them. I just, funny enough, when we're walking up, put out an Instagram post that's talking about like play, and you can only really be creative when you're in a state of play. And you can't be in a state of play if you're fearful of how things are going to do. And so you have to, and in my mind, it is courage to some extent because of the fear associated with it. Step out, say, I'm going to do these things because they matter.
Mhm.
I'm going to do these things because I think it's going to help.
Mhm.
And then, you let the chips fall where they may. And over 2 months, you go and you look back and you go, okay, every Wednesday I put out this type of video. People didn't like it, right? The market doesn't lie.
Mhm.
So why? Do you make an adjustment? Do you scrap it? Or do you love doing it so much that you keep putting it out and you understand that maybe this is a hobby. Maybe this is something that's not going to elevate the business, but it matters so much to you that, hey. But I think being able to free yourself up in that capacity is huge.
Yeah.
And then once you have that data set, you interpret.
Yeah.
And, from my, in my world, I surround myself with people who are better at interpreting it than I am, because the numbers tell a story.
Yeah. I like that. One, you're talking about reflection. You're also talking about bringing in different eyes other than your own, because you're likely applying emotion to the numbers. So get somebody from the outside to basically take a look at it from a less biased perspective.
Yes.
And then be able to give their input, because they may be able to steer you back on a path where it's like, you're going, nobody likes my content, I need to completely pivot. They go, listen, this actually has nothing to do with your content. This has everything to do with its searchability. It's not optimized. Right. And so you even mentioned that before we hopped online here. You said, hey, when I was looking you up, I couldn't find you on YouTube, because like I'm typing your name in and it's not pulling up.
Right.
I don't know how many people have tried to Google, or tried to YouTube me and not find I'm sure there's at least a few people, 50, 100, whatever that is. Right. And I could potentially, could have had an extra 400 to 500 views, which now all of a sudden I don't have it. So I'm thinking, oh, well, this isn't scaling to the degree that it could be. And it's like, it might just be an optimization issue. But I love that you also you said, do it for some time. And like you said, you gave like a month time frame, and then look back at it and reflect after you have enough data points. So also too, not just looking at one video and scrapping it, but saying, let me give this, I enjoy this. I love doing this. So let me give, some multiple data points, not just one. Right, get enough of a sample size that's significant, and then reflect upon it that way.
Yeah,
and that's critical, because I think most people, they just go, "Oh, I post this video and it did really really poorly, so nobody wants this." Exactly. And could be time of day that you posted it. On a Saturday. I know this. My audience on a Saturday is at least active. Most people are, because they're out and about, spending time with their family and friends, so they're not on social media at 12 p.m. versus like 6 p.m. is a sweet spot. Everyone's on their phones, as they're winding their nights down.
Yeah.
So everything you just said right there is awesome about this reflection, bringing another perspective in, and also getting enough data points and not just dropping things off after your first try.
Yeah. And if I may, there's one other piece from my experience that I think, in that same group, if you are someone, putting something online or sharing something creatively, is, one of the things that I'm aware of is what I'm not great at. And so then put people in your corner that are good at those things. That's what the entrepreneur brain says.
Yeah.
And so I just had a big lesson in, I'm sort of a creative mess. I'm sloppy. There's no workflows. I mean, my editors and my brilliant team members are getting on me a lot, because, they're trying to do things and my head's in 20 different, they're like, I need this, so I brought in folks to operationalize and systematize and scale. And as I'm going through this, I'm like, I've jumped the shark. This is too much. I'm losing the creativity and, in my mind, the beauty that, is the sun around which everything else revolves. I've gone too far here. And so really dial that way back, and so, yes, fill in those blind spots and get help. But from the last year or so, the advice I would give is, don't lose sight of you and the value you're providing in what people are showing up for.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always heard that authenticity trumps all. And when you just pour out your real self, that's what you attract, is that energy that you're putting out. You're bringing it right back your way. And ultimately that's going to, be something that you can carry out in the long run, because trying to be somebody or not, at some point the jig's up. People find out, they find out, or like they see your true colors bleed through, and they realize, oh, this entire time you've lied to us. This isn't who you truthfully are. And I see a lot of people in the reality TV world that that, do that. And I'll even say that, say myself, I mean, I was on reality television as a facade of who I wanted to be. I was, putting out what I thought was the most accepted version of me, as opposed to the authentic version of myself that I was suppressing because I was fearful of judgment from others of what happens when I express this creative side of me. How's it going to be portrayed? And now I do it. And it's like, oh, awesome. I pushed away a lot of people that weren't meant for me, but I also started to pull in a select group of people that are. And those bonds are way stronger. Those 5 or 10 bonds are way stronger than the thousands I pushed away. Because the reality is I was like, well, you liked a version of me that wasn't me, that I didn't love myself. So why would I continue to let that live?
Yeah.
And I think that really deep down, I mean, intuitively, they probably realized that like there's something off about him. And it's like, yeah, what's off about me is I don't even associate with what I've created, So it's authenticity is absolutely critical. And it's the way to go in the long run. I mean, eventually, otherwise you're just going to be spinning your wheels trying to, okay, instead of me doing what I feel is best, what do I need to think of today that's going to, appease this audience that I'm not even really connected with. I just know that's what they like.
Yeah.
Like for me, my audience loves like relationship stuff, and they loved like, voiceovers and TikToks and stuff. And I was doing that with my ex, and it's like, it would get all these likes, but I wasn't my thing. Like I didn't enjoy it at the time. I was like, I don't want to be posting this. I want to be posting mental health stuff. And but then I saw all the likes on it. So I was like, well, my audience only wants to see this. Well, it kind of pigeonholed me where I felt trapped into being like, I have to create content, not for what I enjoy, but for what they enjoy. So it was like every day I was waking up and it's a chore. I'm like, I'm dragging myself out to go put this video together. And the reality is like, nobody was asking for it. I just saw all the likes and I thought, well, this is what I need to now become.
That's such an amazing perspective and timely, right? Because, I'm always trying to grow and evolve as well. And like one of the things that I do is like, I like talking about tough things, and it's serious. Like it's, there's poetic nature to it. It's like, it's emotive, serious stuff. But, as our mutual buddy AD knows, I can be a clown sometimes. Right. And so I'm thinking like, well, how do I get more of your exact scenario? Like that was so inspiring for me to hear. Cause it's like, how do I get more of that on there? And it's not even like, I'm like, I got to hide this. It's just not relevant. But then at the same time, you're like, well, it's part of me. So it is relevant, and it's getting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And it's funny. You mentioned like being pigeonholed into what's getting likes. You see like extreme versions of that on TikTok. Like some guy will hit a door with a hammer. It'll get 1 million views. You come back in 2 months and it's like a hammer hitting, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I
It's
mean, it
just
becomes
like,
some crazy,
Yeah.
like how do we there's still the hammer aspect, right? There's that consistent portion, but now there's like, he's in a clown suit or something, right? Like juggling while he throws it. And you're like, okay.
slightly more extreme.
Yeah. Every time it's about pushing the extremes. And like, that's what it becomes. But then, it's like, is that individual enjoy doing it? I mean, now that's become their content, that's their shtick. And I know people that feel like I can't do anything else. I mean, thankfully people like my dance videos. So I started posting those dance videos because I genuinely love to dance, and they performed really well for a couple of reasons. One, because some people did like my dancing. Other people were sharing it because they were making fun of me. And I could see that because I was getting more shares than likes. But from an overall like viewership standpoint, it was, the goofier the videos, the more views it would get. Yeah. But it would get pushed out there. And I've had opportunities, some I can't mention right now, but like because of my dancing brought opportunities. And so I realized like I authentically put this out there and I loved it, even though it was cringy from some people. And I look back at the videos, I go, oh, that was kind of cringy. But it also like, because it was me, just being me, I mean, it pulled in certain opportunities that I then was able to leverage. And I'm like, man, how awesome is that? Right. Like I got to be able to align my content with my passion, and I think that's hard to do because sometimes you just find out you're really good at pushing a message out that like you're just good at doing, but you're like, this isn't really like what I want to do long term, but I'm damn good at it. Yeah.
Man, I'm so grateful for that. Like that's just such a powerful point. It really is. And I don't think like if you're neglecting, like if you are, we'll use the same metaphor, using the hammer, if you're doing something because it's getting likes, but you don't like it, it's 0% chance of success. You will burn out. And if your heart's not there, so like finding that courage, and I believe it is courage to bend that way and be more of yourself I bet you were nervous as hell to hit post on that dancing video.
Oh, I can't. I think I sat there for 40 minutes. And I'll be very, very vulnerable here. I made I think I made a long caption on that first one. I started making long captions because it's how I felt deep down, but I wanted to basically not distract, but I wanted to post like, here's what dance has done for me, because I don't want you to judge me just solely off my dancing ability, because you'll laugh at that. You'll make fun of it. You'll share it. I see more shares than likes. So let me give it some meaning. It was almost like as if like, because there was a ton of meaning behind the dancing, but it was almost like I was in a way
rationalizing
it, like, look at what all this has done for me. Stop judging me based on my dancing. I don't want you to, please read this so that like I don't get your message about how terrible of a dancer I am. Because the reality is if I read enough of those comments, I'll stop posting. So what happened was I was almost protecting myself with that long wall of text saying what dance meant for me. It was resonating with people. And then people would comment based on that long wall of text. And I would get enough positive comments to offset the negative "you suck at dancing" comments, because I knew that deep down, like I was in a very, very, very vulnerable state where it's like enough negative comments could have drove me away from ever posting more dance videos. So I was in a way, I was trying to help myself. I was like, do not lose this battle. Don't give in to the negativity. Right. And so I was like, well, let me find a way to emit positivity, to get people to, to push those positive messages to counteract.
Yeah.
So I was writing sometimes a lot for a period. I was writing these long messages. And now recently I have all this confidence now, because now, my last video I posted, it was like a sentence, because I was like, I don't feel the need now to like give some long descriptive message unless I want to, but it's not to protect me. Like I'm confident in my ability.
Yeah.
But man, it's like, there's so many things that go on behind the scenes of like, should I post this? Why am I posting this? For what purpose? Who's it going to help? Like, or is it just for me, for validation?
Yeah.
And you can sit and look at a video now when you post videos, do you do that? Or now, are you pretty much at a place where you're like, hey, I hate posts and I move on?
That's one area I've gotten really good at.
Okay.
Is just posting and forgetting.
Okay.
Yeah. And not just, sitting in the feedback or dwelling on it. It's moving on to the next thing.
Where is most of your inspiration coming nowadays for the messages that you put out? Are you reading online and seeing where people are, they're out there typing in comments and I feel so hopeless and this, that, and the other? Where ultimately you're getting the inspiration behind your content nowadays?
It's just life. It's just trying to pay attention to things that are going on around you. And I love metaphors. And I think not only that, they help complex ideas come easy.
Okay.
So the other day, for example, this is something I want to write about in the next few days. It's just, I want to figure out how to do it in a way that will connect, because it's a little out there, but is watching from the Optima, you can see this Ferris wheel at night and it's so beautifully lit up. And you're like, why is that there? And then you think about a Ferris wheel, right? So bear with me here. So people wait in line and pay money to get on a ride simply for a change in perspective, to look at the place they were all day differently, right?
Like that,
and not only that, knowing it's beautiful, or they wouldn't have waited in line. It's like the sole reason. And to me, it's like, well, that would be a fun thing to paint, that perspective is everything. And even right where you are, if you can't see it, you're on the ground, there's beauty and opportunity and just everything you need right around you. And so like just things like that, like I love that. I like the challenge of that, and it's easy to remember,
Yeah. I love that. I love, perspective is everything. You can take yourself at ground level and then take yourself hundreds of feet into the air, and really maybe the difference between, outside of like just the increase in the height, might be an increase in distance as far as like how far you've traveled on the ground versus the height. It's like, okay, 300-foot difference. Completely different.
Completely.
You see everything from a bird's eye view. You get a greater appreciation for what's around. You see things, and have a fuller, picture and an image. And also it's inspiring. It's no different than staying at the bottom of the base of a mountain versus the top, the peak.
Exactly.
Right. It's like you look down and up at it, how big it is. But when you get to the top, it's a breathtaking view. And people subject themselves to physical exertion and, crucial terrains. Like I'm thinking, Camelback Mountain, it's a hard mountain to hike.
It's deceptively hard,
isn't it? It's hard. It's vertical. And nonetheless, people will even sometimes risk heat exhaustion. And I've seen people break bones and sprain ankles, and people hear about all of this happening, and they hear about the helicopters coming on and, life flighting somebody out. And yet people still show up. Why? Because the beauty of the view of changing the perspective is worth all of that effort and that potential risk.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes to show you, I mean, that's that the human mind, as far as like, if somebody wants something bad enough, they're going to go after it no matter what. But oftentimes they need that shift in perspective in order to create a desire deep enough to place themselves in a troublesome spot or a chaotic spot, or a place where maximal exertion is required. It's like, but they just need that right framing, that framework in the first place to give them the motivation and determination to push through.
Amen.
Yeah.
And how cool is that? Like, that's what this podcast is. It is a metaphorical Ferris wheel or camelback mountain. Like, people will listen to your episodes and be like, oh, like, I didn't think one little tweak.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is, man. Absolutely. So speaking of, like, sometimes it can just be that one little sentence or phrase. I have a few phrases in my life that whether they're on my phone, whether they're just my favorite mottos, that have changed my life. So I imagine you probably have one or two as well.
Yeah.
Can you share with me 1 to 2 of your favorite quotes or mottos and why they're your favorites?
Oh man. Yeah, I as a quote connoisseur, I could do this for forever. One of my favorite, and they're all, we're sort of projecting our lived experience,
Yeah.
so very much related to my journey. And one of them is Nietzsche's: "Those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who couldn't hear the music." I mean, doesn't that rock your core?
I've never actually heard that.
Oh man,
So I have to digest that. Yeah, like, that's
the idea that people don't and can't, they're unable to see what you see. They're unable to see what's in your mind, your ideas, your ambitions, your plans. They mean nothing until they're tangible and right there for everyone to observe, which means you have to see them and carry them. You have to dance before the metaphorical music plays. Otherwise, you don't have a shot. And to me, that's so powerful, because I just, like we were talking about, went through a lot of hurt trying to bring this to life, because I'm like, I swear there's something here. But bank account didn't show that. Numbers didn't show that. A lot of things didn't show that. And so I think for people to understand that is huge.
That's powerful. I've actually never heard that saying, and I love it, because if they can't hear the music, they think you're crazy. And from an outsider's perspective, this person's dancing to what? They are crazy until they hear it, and they go, oh yeah, they have rhythm. Oh, actually they're really good. They're dancing on, I mean, you take the perfect example, take even a good dancer, I mean, and watch one of their YouTube videos or their Instagram clips, and start out with the music off. And then after you watch all the way through, turn the music on. You're going to be wowed that much more when you see them hitting the moves to each individual
You just
beat.
took it another level. Yeah.
Yeah. But without the volume, to your point, it's like, they're moving fast. Yeah. I mean, like, the best dancers, they'll still look decent, but you're like, but what are they dancing to?
Yeah.
Right. Like, it becomes impressive once you hear the music behind it. That's when you go, oh, I see the vision now. I was missing a piece of the puzzle. So I love that. Okay, that's a great one. So, okay, give me another one, because if you have one that I've never heard, you probably have another one, and it doesn't have to be one. It could be one that a lot of people have heard. I love to hear this, because sometimes somebody is one sentence away from shifting their perspective. So
Yeah.
I see a lot of value in these favorite quotes.
Yeah, this is another one of my favorites. I think there's a famous actor that said it, but my freshman rowing coach hijacked it. So I did crew or rowing in college.
Okay.
And it was like I played soccer my whole life, and there's some endurance, and you obviously have to be in shape, but I never understood physical exertion and pain and suffering, that, by the way, may not even translate to a victory or any, like, that whole thing. It just blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That period of my life just shaped so much. But what he used to say is, sometimes success is simply hanging on when others would be letting go. Because we think, and I'm picturing myself on this rowing machine, right? It's like, we think we need to pull a rabbit out of a hat or perform a miracle, and it's like, dude, just don't stop. Just
Mhm.
continue stepping forward and pivot and learn from life and make these little adjustments. But when you look back over 5 or 7 or 10 years, you look over your shoulder, you've walked a distance that most people couldn't because they just say, I can't, I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's too expensive for me,
Mhm.
metaphorically, right? So that really hit home, because some of the biggest things I want to do, like I look at them, I'm like, that just seems like it requires more than I can give.
Mhm.
And then you remind yourself, just step in, jump into the pool. You know,
Yeah.
upload the dance video.
Yeah.
You know, the first time you do it, you know, hindsight's 2020. You go back to the first dance video and you go, I wish I had the courage and my convictions to not even put a caption. But at that moment, posting that with the caption took all of you,
Mhm.
right? And so that started this thing where now time's gone by and you look back at that and you go, okay, I get it now. And now I'm confident. Now I'll just put a sentence and I dance,
Yeah.
whatever. But like everything starts somewhere. And
Yeah.
that framing is cool.
Yeah, you just got to put one foot in front of the other. And then before you know it, you put one foot every single day, just one foot. And, you know, now you're 365 steps in a year ahead of where you once were. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. They have these massive goals. They're shooting for the stars and they expect nothing less. And it's like, what if you land in the clouds? You know, like I always, that was something I would tell myself, shoot for the stars, land in the clouds. You're still in the clouds. That's still a victory, right? You know, so you can have these overarching, you know, these goals that seem out of reach. You're still going to find yourself farther than you ever did. I mean, the more lofty your goals are, of course, you make them too lofty, you just never achieve them. And every so often, I think you have to place goals in your life that are achievable, just to say, okay, I got it. Like I just need to kind of give myself and throw myself a bone every so often.
Sure.
What is it that you're currently like? What's your lofty goal right now that you're pushing toward?
I am sort of a part two. So the content that I make, selfishly, I love making it and I really enjoy it and it adds value to a lot of folks. It is perspective. And it's you know, something like I listen to some personal development or motivation every day because it just frames my day and I'm better when I do that. But there's also a piece where it's like, so what? Like now what? What type of action are you creating? And so rather than just release this perpetual stream of dopamine hits, trying to find a way that says, okay, and now let's go from 0 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's be healthier. Let's be happier. Let's be more content. Let's be whatever that is for you. Let's start that. And so help create some mechanism for people to start taking action and not just listening, because that can be can do nothing for you.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm really excited about that.
Okay. So is there any, I mean, as far as what action are you wanting them to take? I mean, have you gotten that far along right now, or is it just, okay, we have all these views now, how do we funnel it into, I mean, like what could that look like for those individuals taking action?
So right now I got a whiteboard on the wall with scribbles all over it, you know, but what I know is, you know, some type of community where people do not feel alone. One of the worst parts of doing something like that is just feeling empty and alone.
Yeah.
So mitigating that piece, but also, you know, what are some techniques? What are some ways to step into that and start hammering away or chiseling away? You know, there's most of the things that have changed my life, and this theme continues to stay the same. It's simplicity. It's, you know, I went through a stretch where I give myself a list of 10 things I wanted to do that day. It's impossible to do, right? So let's say I have an amazing day and I do 7 of the 10, still go to bed feeling like I underperformed, right? And it's not a good way to live. And so things like pick 3 things that you can do and knock those out. And when your head hits the pillow, you go to bed feeling like someone who sets goals and achieves goals. And that momentum is everything. It bleeds into the next day. You know, people follow through on who they believe themselves to be. So it's like different ways to reinforce that and paint that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, understanding, okay. And that takes a sense of mindfulness to say, okay, here are the tasks that I want to get done today. How likely is it that I get all of these? And I think that's where you can also, you know, separate and say, okay, here's the ones at a bare minimum I want to get done today. The realistic probability that I get all 3 of these done is 100%. great. If I add this fourth one in, what does it make the likelihood that I, achieve all of these, or four of them? Okay, well, this is going to be a bigger task. Now it might go down to 75%, right? But I think like I do the same thing that you do, where I use my calendar every single day. And so I say, here are the things that I need to get done. And I start at the very beginning of my day. I'm like, okay, here's my current schedule, and here's open blocks. So what can I fill in these blocks? And then I block it off and say this, and this. And so if I achieve those things and stay on task, then I'm like, anything I do beyond that is a bonus, right? So it's just, it's basically writing it down and saying, okay, also too, I wrote it down. Can I achieve this? Yeah. Okay. I need to be able to achieve this, because if every day I keep writing down 10 things and I achieve 7, you're going to start believing like I'm failing. 7 out of 10, I'm getting a C, right? Yeah. So that's a C on a report card, right? That's an average, and so it's like, and if I get 6 out of 10, now I'm in D range and I'm close to failing. And I think like people don't realize that these tricks our brain plays, where it's like, no, you didn't. Our brain doesn't say, hey, you achieved 6 things. It's you didn't achieve 4 when you had 10 things to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's just the way our brains are wired. I think our brains are wired for growth. I think everybody wants to grow. And I think that's where you have a lot of individuals that, they become complacent, but they're never fully content, because they're always like, I feel like they should be doing something else. What should I be doing with my time? And that's where people feel guilty when they sit, and doom scroll or they're on social media for 3 hours, and they feel deep down like I could have done, utilized my time better.
Yeah.
I think as humans, we're just meant to grow. So, that's why our brains are always in this growth mindset, not what did we get done? It's what didn't we get done? Because now that's the thing we need to get done, of all things that we didn't do or that we did do. It's like, but that's the one we should have done. And
yeah.
It's just like a never ending cycle. So I think we just have to first be aware of that. Like, okay, understand our brain is hardwired for more, wants to do more, but we have to be still like, we have to pat ourselves on the back. That's an active conscious thought that I don't think we do subconsciously. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Progress equals happiness.
I think so. Yeah.
I remember reading this little story about like negativity bias. And so like you have a couple go into a restaurant, it's their favorite restaurant, and they go 99 times. And on the 100th time, there's a cockroach on their plate. Like that will forever be the cockroach restaurant. Now, like we see the bad, we at least default, to see what's not there, what's missing, what we don't have.
Yeah.
And I think so much of life is sort of positioning ourselves to defeat that, and to your point, if you didn't do 4 out of 10 things, that's what you'll remember. And it's important to build yourself up as someone that sets goals and achieves goals.
Yeah. And in the sense of the cockroach story, when you have that recency bias as well with, oh, there's a cockroach on my plate, that restaurant's now the cockroach restaurant. But it doesn't have to be. If we are mindful and we step back and reflect upon the 99 previous times, we can rewrite that narrative back to that was just a one-off thing. So again, it's like the recency bias without any mindfulness will end up taking effect and become your new reality and your truth, unless you take the time to unpack it and rewire it in that moment and say, but 99 of the previous times, it was an incredible restaurant, and we celebrated my birthday here. We celebrated an anniversary here. We celebrated this person's, special gathering for this. And it's like, wow, we've had so many incredible memories here. I love this place. Oh, I actually love, the servers too. I mean, I know all the servers here, Tom, Jeff, this, that, and the other. And then you start basically playing all these things out of like, I love this restaurant. And then just like that, it's like, there goes the cockroach story. It's like, oh, it's cockroach. I mean, it could have happened to anybody, right? I found one in my house once, and I cleaned my house and it's super clean, but they sneak in every so often. Those things can survive an atomic bomb. I mean, what do you expect? Right. So I think like, that's what I find is when you start to basically go, no, hold on, let me challenge that narrative. You can just rewrite the perspective, but you only rewrite it with first an awareness and then a will to want to see it from a different lens. If you don't have that want, that desire to create change after you acknowledge it, then you go nowhere. So I love that you shared that, because I think it's important that people understand that recency bias without any action is going to end up becoming, your new reality.
Ooh,
yeah. What I'm just curious. I feel like everybody, there's everything happens for a reason, and there's a purpose behind everything. Your shirt says within. Is there significance behind that?
Yeah. So the podcast and brand is called Your World Within.
Okay.
And I actually, one of the things that I was stubborn about, because, actually, we were kind of chatting about this. It's like a one-to-one analogy here. So I had a mentor say to me, because everything was your world within, everything was faceless, there was no Eddie Pinero. And my mentor at the time was like, hey, no one's going to hire your world within to speak. They're going to hire Eddie Pinero to speak. And so, you need to step out in front of this. And I remember thinking about that for a while and started making that change. And I'm telling you, I mean, people want to associate with people, and that really helped me connect and grow.
Yeah.
So it's still, the Your World Within podcast, but yeah, you'll see Eddie Pinero most places now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. It's so true. I mean, it's people, they really yearn for that human interaction, that when there's a face now behind it, it makes all the difference. Going all the way back to the beginning of this discussion where you said that email that somebody sends. I mean, that's a real human being. You may not see their face, but like you can visualize them typing out, all those words in that long message. And it's like that human aspect is what we all crave. Yeah. Right. So Your World Within, again, like it's a slew of words, and the videos are impactful and motivational, but who's the one behind it? Who's the magician behind it? Or the creator? I want to know who that is, right? Because that person is the one putting all this incredible knowledge out there. I want to get to know that person. I want to see that face. I want to know what they've went through, right? And there's so much power and beauty behind your story as well. And so that's why I'm just so grateful you came on here today, Eddie, because you did. You shared this story. You've peeled back the curtain to say, hey, here's the individual behind, and again, I've seen your content. There's like you do put your face out there now. Yep. I think it was incredible advice to be given, but thank you so much for coming on here and really just sharing your story and journey so far. And so for those that want to continue following you on your journey, where's the best place they can find you?
Probably YouTube.
Okay.
Eddie Pinero or Your World Within, they'll both come up. Same thing on Instagram. And, if I can ever help with anything or add any value, shoot me a DM, and pretty good at getting back.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Eddie, for your time.
Hey, thank you. This is an awesome conversation.